Karl, over to you. Really quick intro, and then we'll go through all the questions and we can share everything we know with this fantastic audience. So over to you, Karl. Thank you.
Good afternoon, all. My name's Karl Stewart. I'm a qualified accountant by trade, but I'm also a landlord, a property investor. I've built up a small portfolio of houses up north, namely in Wakefield, where I'm an accredited landlord with the council. I've done a variety of different strategies, ranging from single lets, buy-to-let, HMOs, all sorts of strategies. And I've got some future ambitions to get into commercial to residential. So yeah, that's me.
Thanks, Karl. Karl, you're a property developer and investor. So how did you get into it? And then maybe tell us an example of one of these really difficult things you've overcome that these guys out here might actually face on their journey.
Yeah, so I've been invested now since about 2002 when I bought my first property. And I've always researched how people became really wealthy. And if you kind of look at the rich list, for example, the majority of those wealthy people have all acquired their wealth mainly through property in some respect. Mm-hmm. And so it led me on a bit of a journey. I started to educate myself and get around some fellow investors, started to go to different places, look at different deals. And then from there, I kind of just took a leap of faith, and just started buying properties here and there and then doing different strategies and things like that. In terms of challenges, I've had a variety of challenges. It's definitely not an easy thing to do. But one of the things I really like about property is that it can be very forgiving. What I mean by that is even when I've made mistakes, I've still made money, which has contributed to making my life better and providing financial freedom. So some of those challenges are dealing with neighbors who are just causing a nuisance to my tenants to the point where they want to move out. Dealing with builders who are not really builders, they're thieves really. They just want to rip people off and having to deal with that. But yeah, the challenges are different depending upon what sort of strategy I'm dealing with. But as I say, it can be very, very forgiving if you kind of know what you're doing when you're investing in property.
Yeah, absolutely. I think once you get into entrepreneurship or the property journey, something we like to say in my business is you pay for the lesson, so it costs you, but actually sometimes, so although it's forgiving that you might still make the money, it might be that you paid for that lesson, it cost you £1,000, so later on go and make yourself 10,000. So, and I think that's something, from my experience in the industry and knowing many different property professionals and developers and investors, sometimes we try and cut corners to save money, but in the long run, it can cost us more money. So there's a benefit of having that specialist team around you, although at the start it feels like quite a high outlay, but actually in the long run could avoid us running into these mistakes.
I'd actually like to add to your point, having a team is so important. Having a team of, whether it be an architect, a builder, people in the council, a planning person or whoever, all of that's essential, I've found in my experience. If you're going to be investing like myself, I invest like 300 miles away from where I live. So having a team is essential. And I wouldn't do it without a team because it's too much risk.
Sure, and 300 miles away, okay, can you tell us a bit more about why? Like, what's your strategy there? Is it better return on investment? Let's talk about that a bit. I think people find that interesting.
Yeah, so for me, as I said, when I was first getting started, I'd done a lot of research. And I was always looking for a strategy that would allow me to potentially replace my income and give me financial freedom. Mm-hmm. And a mentor said to me, sometimes the best fruit is on the furthest branch.
Okay.
And that's something that's always stuck with me because you can get a much better return for your money typically if you go up north. What I found with a lot of investors, if you want an income strategy, you should be looking further afield because you're not going to get the sort of returns that we're getting up north, down south. Okay. And that's what led me to the north, and it's been worth my while. So.
Brilliant. And how many properties have you got up there?
To be honest, I've been selling off a lot, so I've only got a small portfolio now. I've been realising a lot of capital to go and do other things. I mentioned earlier about getting into commercial to residential.
Okay.
So I've been looking to get rid of some of these properties now because they've provided the income and then realise some capital. So
Brilliant. Oh, I love that.
Hi, Karl.
I
Interesting story. I just have two questions in one, if that's okay. You've said you've tried all sorts of strategies. If you had to do just one strategy, right? What would that be strategy for you? I mean, what would be that strategy? And number two, if you had to drop a strategy, which of the multitude of strategies you've done would you drop?
That's a good question. I've got to think about that actually because, to be honest, I've utilised different strategies at different stages in the market. So, for example, in a downturn, I would be looking to really focus on targeting motivated sellers who might want to sell their properties really cheaply for whatever reason. But then in a growing market, I'll probably look to maybe flip some property and take advantage of a growing market and make some profit that way. So it really depends on the context that we're talking about. In terms of strategies that I drop, again, I wouldn't say that there's a strategy that I drop. I would just say I would try and adapt my strategy for whatever it is that I'm dealing with at the time. But vanilla buy-to-lets have been really good for me. Buying property using what they call is a gold mine ad, for example. You might have seen in a local paper, you get an advert saying we buy property, any price, any condition or whatever. I've utilised stuff like that before. So yeah, that's kind of what I'd say to that. I hope I'm answering your question.
Hello, Karl. My question is to you. So I've got a team, and we are quite undecided on what strategy to use, and it's either going to make or break the whole thing. So half of us are thinking about buy and rent, which is long term, and the other half is concentrating on how do you call them? Auction properties. You buy and then renovate and sell. What would you recommend if you were starting out right now with all the knowledge you have? What would you go for?
I'd say start with the end in mind. So what I mean by that is I'd ask, what is it that we're trying to achieve? I don't know what it is that you want to achieve, but if you start from that point, there's numerous strategies that will allow you to achieve that. But you've got to be crystal clear on what it is that you want to achieve. And then how many partners are you working with? 4, okay. Yeah, I'd say start with the end in mind. I guess the majority, do you think the majority would rule in that scenario that you're in? Because if that's the case, then once you know what you want, build out your sort of strategy from there. If you want to, like myself, wanting to achieve like income, I would say buy-to-lets, go somewhere up north, allowing your capital to be deployed in various different deals that will help you to get to where you want to get to quicker. But if you want lumps of cash, you might be, like you say, looking at auction, looking at adding value to property and then flipping them on. Or you could even potentially build a portfolio as well by buying an auction. But you really got to be crystal clear on what it is that you want to achieve and then go on from there, I'd say.
Beautiful. Thank you. Gentleman here.
Hi, panel. I have a property portfolio of over 100 properties that covers from the Midlands to Glasgow. How can I link with investors so I can show them this type of portfolio?
I'll be interested in having a look, so I'm involved.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll leave it there, thank you.
Yeah.
My question is also for Karl. I was discussing this with a friend earlier. So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you said that you're selling, kind of moving from commercial more into residential. So my question is, with like Renters Reform Bill and things going on with like Section 21 and energy, all the new requirements for landlords, which are potentially kind of squeezing a lot of profit out. What is your approach to that? Do you think it's still a worthwhile? I mean, it's worthwhile investment, but what's your approach essentially to kind of a lot of landlords being squeezed out of the residential kind of market?
I'd say be a very good landlord. If you comply with the regulations, then this is great for us. If you want to follow things as you ought to and do things properly, then these regulations give you an advantage over those landlords who don't want to do things properly and who want to cut corners. In terms of building a portfolio, I wouldn't buy any more property in my personal name. I'd use an SPV, a special purpose vehicle or company, and I would utilize that company in order to grow a portfolio that way, because that way you get around the Section 24 issue. You still can use interest as a deduction from your profit rather than being taxed on all this sort of rental income that you would do if you were buying in your personal name. So there's always a way around it. Again, I think it's just being very, very clear on what it is that you want to achieve and then going on from there. But there's always a way around it. I'd also say, in terms of team, you need to have a good accountant on your team. My accountant, he is a property investor, but he's very specialist. So in terms of all that sort of tax planning and being tax efficient, he's someone who I'd really go to before utilizing any sort of strategies that I might want to use in the future.
Brilliant. And I would just not be doing my business a service if I didn't take the opportunity there. If you go and borrow in the name of a limited company, you'll be asked to get a personal guarantee 99.9% of the times as an investor. To guarantee that in your personal name, you will be asked to get something called ILA, independent legal advice. So something else you'll need in that power team is accountants, lawyers to help with that structure, because it does have different requirements. So I think we've got time, I think the one at the back here, and we might have time for this gentleman here if we're fast, but it might not. So let's see how we go.
Hi, Karl. It's me here.
Hey, hi.
Okay, I have, you said you are up in the north, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
So I already have a property portfolio, and I'm thinking to expand in the north. So if I come to you, how much is the service charge?
We could work on a case-by-case basis. I'm not actually a sourcer per se, but I'm always open to joint venture opportunities. So we can definitely have a chat about that and try and work something out.
Okay, that's great.